You won't believe what this family dog did that saved a baby's life. Picture this. A quiet Tuesday morning, sun pouring through the kitchen windows. The smell of coffee brewing, a baby giggling in a high chair. Everything feels perfect, normal, safe. And then, in one explosive second, chaos erupts. German Shepherd launches himself across the room like he's been struck by lightning. Barking, snarling, teeth flashing. Heading straight for the person feeding the baby. Food goes flying. The baby starts screaming. Everyone's heart stops. Here's what nobody understood in that terrifying moment. This wasn't an attack. This was a rescue mission. And what this dog detected before any human could, it was about to change everything this family thought they knew about the animal sleeping in their home. Before we go any further, I've got to ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where your pet acted completely out of character, like they knew something you couldn't see? Drop your story in the comments, because I'm telling you, after you hear what happened here, you're going to look at your own pets differently. Incredible true stories like this every single week. So let's rewind to that morning. Everything started out beautifully, the kind of morning you'd see in a magazine. Golden light washing over everything. The baby, barely a year old, was in that adorable stage where everything makes him laugh. Just the sound of a spoon tapping a bowl had this kid cracking up. The nanny, who'd been with the family for months, was humming this soft melody while she fed the little one. Spoonfuls of warm oatmeal, each one carefully cooled down first. She was patient, gentle, the kind of caregiver every parent dreams of finding. And then there was Rocky. This massive German Shepherd with a coat like copper and shadow. He'd been part of the family for years, the kind of dog that's basically a furry member of the household. Loyal doesn't even begin to cover it. He'd grown up around kids, never shown a single sign of aggression. Not once. That morning, he'd been lying by the window, soaking up a patch of sunshine. His tail would flick occasionally, totally relaxed, totally at peace, until he wasn't. It started so subtle that nobody caught it at first. His ears, which had been flopped over in that sleepy way, suddenly stood straight up. Alert, his whole body went from loose and comfortable to tight as a wire. And then came this sound. Low, deep, a growl that seemed to vibrate from somewhere ancient inside him. The nanny glanced over, probably figuring it was a delivery truck or maybe a squirrel outside. "Easy there, big guy," she said with a little laugh. "What's got you all worked up?" But Rocky's eyes weren't on the window. They weren't on the door. They were locked, absolutely fixed, on that high chair, on the baby, on the bowl of oatmeal. His growl got louder, more insistent, and then he barked. Not a playful bark, not a "hey, pay attention to me" bark. This was urgent, almost frantic. The kind of bark that makes your blood run cold because you know something is wrong, even if you do, you won't know what. The nanny jerked back so fast the spoon flew out of her hand. It clattered across the tile floor. Oatmeal splattered everywhere, little beige droplets hitting the table, the high chair, the floor. The baby, startled by the noise and the sudden tension in the air, let out a wail, that heartbreaking cry that babies do when they're scared. The mother, who'd been at the counter pouring herself a second cup of coffee, spun around so fast some coffee sloshed over the rim. Her heart was already racing. That parent instinct that kicks in when something feels off. From somewhere in the house, the father's voice boomed. "What's happening in there?" You could hear his footsteps, heavy and fast, pounding toward the kitchen. And Rocky wasn't finished. Not even close. He lunged forward with so much power that his claws scraped against the floor, leaving little scratches in the tile. A kitchen chair got caught in his path and went crashing over. The nanny pressed herself back against the wall, one arm raised defensively, eyes wide with shock and fear. The mother reached Rocky first. She grabbed his collar with both hands, fingers digging into the leather, trying to pull him back. "Rocky, stop it! What are you doing?" Her voice cracked. This was her dog. Her gentle, sweet dog. who'd never hurt anyone. The father burst into the kitchen half a second later, adding his strength to try and restrain the shepherd. But it was like trying to hold back a freight train. Rocky's muscles were bunched up, solid, refusing to be moved. His focus was absolute. The Nanny was shaking, checking her arm where Rocky's teeth had caught the edge of her sleeve. Just fabrique. No broken skin. But the shock of it had her breathing hard. The baby was still crying, those big tears rolling down chubby cheeks. But here's the thing that nobody had noticed yet. Rocky wasn't looking at the Nanny's face. He wasn't focused on her at all, really. His eyes, his entire attention, was zeroed in on that bowl. The one with the oatmeal. His nose was working overtime, twitching, sniffing, and his bark changed. It became sharper, more pointed, like he was trying to communicate something specific. The father followed Rocky's line of sight. He leaned in closer, careful not to touch anything. And that's when he saw them, these tiny little specks. Dark, black, almost, floating on top of the oatmeal's creamy surface. "Hold on," he said quietly. "What is that?" His voice had gone from panicked to confused. The mother stepped closer, still holding Rocky's collar. Her pulse was hammering in her ears. And then she remembered something. Earlier that morning, before anyone else was awake, she'd seen Rocky acting strange, pacing around the kitchen, sniffing everything, restless in a way that wasn't normal for him. At the time, she'd figured maybe he needed to go outside, or was just being weird. But now everything clicked into a terrifying picture. They carefully moved the bowl away from the baby, set it on the counter where nobody could accidentally touch it. The father grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed emergency services. His voice was steady, but you could hear the fear underneath. "We need someone here right away. Something's wrong with our baby's food. Our dog just went crazy trying to stop us from feeding it to her." Time does this weird thing in emergencies. It stretches out and compresses all at once. The minutes waiting for help felt like hours. The parents took turns holding the baby, rocking her, trying to calm her down while their own hearts were going wild. Rocky positioned himself right next to the high chair. He'd stopped barking, but his body language screamed alertness. Ears up, tail stiff. Yes, sharp. When the paramedics and police officers came through the door, Rocky gave one single, sharp bark and looked directly at the bowl on the counter. Almost like he was pointing, like he was saying there. "That's what you need to check." One of the officers called in a food safety specialist to arrive with this intimidating-looking kit full of testing equipment. Everyone watched in silence as the specialist opened vials, swabbed the oatmeal, applied chemicals to test strips. The room felt frozen. The parents stood so close together their shoulders were touching, the baby clutched between them. The nanny sat at the table, still shaking, hands wrapped around a glass of water someone had given her. And then the test strip changed color. The officer's face went grim. "We've got a positive result here," he said, his tone professional but serious. "There's poison in this food. Chemical analysis suggests it's a household cleaning agent, concentrated enough that even a small amount could have been lethal, especially for a child this young." The words hung in the air like a bomb. The mother made this sound, halfway between a gasp and a sob. She buried her face in the baby's hair, holding her so tight. The father felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. They'd been seconds away. Literal seconds. One more spoonful, and they'd be living in a completely different reality right now. The investigation moved fast after that. Officers searched the kitchen, the pantry, every cabinet. And they found it. On a shelf in the pantry, tucked behind some boxers of pasta, there was a bottle of industrial-strength cleaner. The kind of stuff you use the kind that has about 15 warning labels on it. And the cap was cracked. Not obviously broken, but enough that over the course of the night, a few drops had leaked out. Those drops had somehow made their way into the baby-ass cereal container that was stored on the same shelf. Just a tiny amount. Enough to contaminate the whole batch. Eno Hugtukil. The nanny was questioned, thoroughly. But it became clear immediately that she had no idea. She'd just grabbed the cereal that morning like she did every morning. Made the oatmeal the same way she always did. There was no malice. No intent. Just a horrible, random accident waiting to happen. When the officers cleared her of any wrongdoing, she broke down, just sat at that kitchen table with tears streaming down her face. She kept looking at Rocky, kept whispering, "Thank you, thank you. Thank you over and over." Because she realized that if Rocky hadn't stopped her, if she'd fed that baby even one more bite, she would have been the person who accidentally poisoned a child. The guilt she felt for something that wasn't even her fault was crushing. The parents couldn't stop touching Rocky, kneeling down next to him, running their hands through his thick fur, scratching behind his ears the way he liked, whispering to him, "You saved her. You saved our baby." Because that's exactly what he'd done. What everyone thought was aggression, what looked like a dangerous attack from a dog who'd snapped, was actually the most desperate act of protection. Rocky had detected something that no human sense could have caught. Some combination of smell and instinct and whatever mysterious thing happens in a dog's brain had told him that Bull was dangerous, and he'd done everything in his power to stop them from feeding it to the baby he loved. That evening, after all the chaos had settled and the police had left and the contaminated food had been disposed of properly, the house finally got quiet again. The baby, blissfully unaware of how close she'd come to tragedy, slept peacefully in her crib. The nanny, exhausted but grateful, sat with a cup of tea, trying to process everything. And Rocky lay down right next to the crib, not sleeping, but resting. His eyes half closed but alert, that steady rise and fall of his chest, standing guard like he'd always done, like he always would. The parents sat on the edge of their bed that night, just looking at each other. The mother had cried so much her eyes were puffy. The father kept shaking his head like he couldn't quite believe it was real. They went to Rocky before going to sleep. Both of them kissed the top of his head. "You're a hero," the mother whispered. "You saved us." Rocky's tail thumped against the floor. Slow. Steady. Like he was saying, "Of course I did. That's my job." Word spread the way it does in neighborhoods and through social media. Friends called. Neighbors stopped by. Everyone wanted to hear the story firsthand. Everyone was stunned, amazed. A little emotional, honestly, because who doesn't love a story about a dog saving a life? Rocky became something of a local celebrity, but he didn't change. He was still the same loyal, gentle shepherd he'd always been. Still loved his patch of sunshine by the window. Still got excited about walks and treats, but the family looked at him differently now, with a deeper respect, a profound gratitude. Because here's what this whole terrifying experience taught them. Sometimes when animals act strange, when they do things that seem out of character or even aggressive, there's a reason. They're not trying to cause problems. They're trying to communicate something they can sense that we can't. Rocky couldn't say stop. That food is poisoned. He couldn't explain that his nose detected chemicals that didn't belong. All he could do was bark, lunge, make himself impossible to ignore until the humans around him paid attention to what he was trying to show them. Think about that for a second. How many times have we dismissed animal behavior as random or annoying? How many times have we written off a dog as barking or a cat as hissing as them just being difficult? What if they're trying to tell us something important? Rocky's story is a powerful reminder that the animals we share our homes with are so much more than pets. They're protectors. They're family members with instincts and abilities that go way beyond what we can understand. So here's what I want you to take away from this. First, pay attention to your pets. Really pay attention. If your dog or cat suddenly acts weird, especially around food or specific areas of your house, don't just brush it off. Investigate. Second, make sure your cleaning products and chemicals are stored safely. Caps tight. Away from food. High up, where they can't leak onto anything edible. This family got lucky because Rocky was there. Not everyone has that safety net. And third, never underestimate the bond between humans and animals. That connection is real. It's powerful. And sometimes, it's literally life-saving. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you. Have you got a pet at home? Has your dog or cat ever done something that seemed crazy at the time but later made sense? Drop your stories in the comments because I read every single one, and I love hearing about these incredible moments. And listen, if this story moved you, if it made you hug your pet a little tighter or think differently about the animals in your life, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we bring you real stories like this that remind us why life is so precious, and why the beings we love, furry or not, matter so much. Rocky's story could have ended in tragedy. Instead, it ended with a family intact, a baby safe,